Hey folks, this is Kalani. Legendary items in Shadowlands are going to play a huge part in your character's overall power progression, and they're going to work significantly differently when compared to any legendaries from the past. In Shadowlands, we'll be crafting our own legendaries. We still don't have the full picture on the alpha just yet, but we now have a glimpse at one more piece of the puzzle: legendary effects. These effects are really the key factor in whether legendaries in Shadowlands will be amazing or another lackluster system, so I can't wait to look through them. Before we jump in, be sure to pop by our live stream sometime over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We go live every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 12 PM PST, and we have something awesome planned for this Saturday, so I hope to see you soon. Let's dig through these new legendary effects that were recently data mined. This is the first time we found actual effects that will probably make it into the game. Keep in mind we're still in alpha, so anything can change between now and the release of Shadowlands, but I think most of these will make it through, mainly because we've seen a lot of them before. The dev team said they would pull from old set bonuses, old legendary effects, especially Legion legendary effects, and even Torghast anima powers to create a huge roster of potential legendary effects for us to choose from. We only have some previews for Death Knight, Mages and Warriors for now, but as each new build is applied to the alpha, I'm sure we'll find more and more. Let's have a look at the Death Knights first. The effects are split into different categories. Some work for every spec, and then there are spec-specific ones as well. For general effects, DKs will get Super Strain, your Frost Fever, Blood Plague, and Virulent Plague also apply the other two diseases. This is also an anima power that you can pick up in Torghast, and just give you some more damage over time potential. If you're allowed to spread all three diseases, that could be great for AoE and Cleave. Pheromones. You and your minions gain 10% haste while you're inside your Death and Decay, and enemies damaged by your Death and Decay have a chance to cower in place for 3 seconds. This is also an anima power and has some very interesting DPS and defensive potential. Built-in CC to your Death and Decay could end up being amazing for things like Mythic Plus. It makes it kind of like an earthquake from Shamans. Death's Embrace increases the duration of anti-magic shell by 100%, and any damage it absorbs heals you. This used to be a legendary from Legion and could be a great pickup for blood DKs in magic damage heavy encounters. Grip of the Everlasting. For 3 seconds after casting Death Grip, you may cast the spell a second time without regard for its cooldown. Probably another pickup for the blood DKs on fights where that second grip could be crucial for stacking priority adds. For blood-specific effects, we have Bryndior's Might. Death Strike refunds 15% of runic power spent if it heals you for more than 10% of your max health. Keep those death strikes flowing. Crimson Rune Weapon. When a charge of Bone Shield is consumed, the cooldown of Dancing Rune Weapon is reduced by 30 seconds. Additionally, when Dancing Rune Weapon fades, your rune regeneration rate is increased by 40% for 10 seconds. That is a huge reduction on Dancing Rune Weapon. I can see a lot of blood DKs going for this one for sure. Gorefiend's Domination. Heart Strike reduces the remaining cooldown on Vampiric Blood by 2 seconds. This is another amazing cooldown reduction effect. Having access to Vampiric Blood more often is only going to be a good thing. Vampiric Aura. Your Vampiric Blood ability also affects all party members for 50% of the effect it has on you. An interesting support option thrown in for good measure as well. All of these effects were either Legion legendaries or set bonuses from previous raid tiers. For Frost DKs, we have Koltira's Favor. Obliterate deals 10% increased damage and has a 15% chance to refund 2 runes. Biting Cold. Remorseless Winter damage is increased by 15%. The first time Remorseless Winter deals damage to 3 different enemies, you gain Rhyme. Nice to see some Azerite powers make the cut as well. Absolute Zero. Frostworm's Fury has 50% reduced cooldown and freezes all enemies hit for 3 seconds. That is going to be huge for any AoE encounters, and maybe for large pulls in Mythic Plus dungeons as well. Who doesn't want to call down more huge frozen dragons? And then Unholy has the following effects. Reanimated Shambler. Your attacks have a chance to summon a super zombie that shambles forward and explodes, dealing a bunch of shadow damage and applying a festering wound to 8 nearby enemies. Summoning normal ghouls just isn't enough. We need some more super zombies in here. Frenzied Monstrosity Dark Transformation also increases the attack speed and damage of you and your monstrosity by 20%. Nice throughput bonus with the pets there, always good for Unholy. Death Certainty, Death Strike and Death Coil deal 10% increased damage and reduce the remaining cooldown of Defile or Death and Decay by 2 seconds, just in case you didn't have enough Death and Decays to throw down. And the last one for now is Deadliest Coil. Reduces the runic power cost of Death Coil by 10, and Death Coil increases the duration of Dark Transformation by 2 seconds. More set bonuses, a legendary from Legion, and even an ability from a Legion artifact. You can see they're pulling from all sorts of sources to populate this list of legendary effects. I said you'd probably recognize a few of them, now you can see why. Let's move on to the mages. For general effects we have Expanded Potential. Your Fireball, Frostball and Arcane Blast have a chance to give you Expanded Potential, which causes your next Hot Streak, Brain Freeze or Clear casting to not be consumed. Free procs is always nice. Disciplinary Command, casting a Frost, Fire and Arcane spell within 10 seconds of each other increases your critical strike damage of all your spells by 10%. This effect can only occur once every 30 seconds, and you might think this hard to do, but every mage spec in Shadowlands has Frostbolt, Fire Blast and Arcane Explosion, every single one of them, so with 2 of them being instant as well, this would actually be really easy to achieve. The only weird part would be timing it. It is a bit of a strange one that will require a lot of management, but it's nice to see some new effects in here as well. Grizzly Icicle, your Frost, Fire and Arcane damage against enemies affected by Frost Nova is increased by 10% and no longer breaks it. Not breaking Frost Novas is going to be huge, especially for PvP. Temporal Warp, while you have Temporal Displacement or other similar effects like Sated, you may use Time Warp at a reduced effectiveness, granting 15% haste for 20 seconds. Not quite as good as the second full Time Warp from the Legion Legendary, but an interesting option nonetheless. For Arcane Mages specifically, we have Arcane Harmony, increases the damage done by Arcane Missiles by 10%. Each time Arcane Missiles hits an enemy, the damage of your next Arcane Barrage is increased by 2%, and this effect stacks. Arcane Bombardment, Arcane Barrage deals an additional 40% damage against targets below 35% health. That could change up things in a few ways and give you an Execute as an Arcane Mage, always useful. Siphon Storm, Evocation grants 2 arcane charges, and while channeling Evocation, your intellect is increased by 2% every 1 second, lasts for 30 seconds. Another Azerite trait here. I wonder how powerful this will end up being though. The true power of Brainstorm came from the stacking capabilities of having 3 of the trait. This might not have enough oomph on its own, but varied effects are always nice. And Triune Ward, casting any barrier spell grants the effects of Blazing Barrier, Ice Barrier and Prismatic Barrier. Each Absorb Shield has 40% effectiveness. This sounds really powerful, but I think it's just going to be for show. Having each barrier active will look crazy and cool, but if each is only at 40% effectiveness, then it's really just 120% of an original shield, right? That doesn't sound too amazing. And then here come the Fire Mages. Fevered Incantation. Each consecutive critical strike you deal increases critical strike damage you deal by 2%. This could be potentially amazing for your combustion windows where all of your spells are crits. That's going to stack up pretty quickly. Firestorm. When Hot Streak activates, you have a low chance to cause all Pyroblasts and Flame Strikes to have no cast time and be guaranteed crit strikes for 5 seconds. Who doesn't want to spam Pyros non-stop, or even Flame Strikes non-stop for 5 seconds? That sounds amazingly fun. Molten Skyfall, casting 30 fireballs or pyroblasts calls down a meteor on your target. Hitting an enemy player counts as double. I wish this one ended up being better in Legion, but the double credit for players could be hilarious. Drop meteors on everyone's heads in BGs. And then we also have Sun King's Blessing. After consuming 6 hot streaks, your next non-instant pyroblast cast within 15 seconds grants you combustion for 6 seconds. Another hard cast pyro effect, which could end up being incredibly powerful. Giving you combustion for 6 seconds will allow you to do a bit more damage outside of your crazy DPS windows, but it might throw off your cooldowns a little bit as well. And then we come to the Frost Mages. Slick Ice. While Icy Veins is active, each Frostbolt you cast reduces the cast time of Frostbolt by 5%, stacking up to 10 times. I imagine the casting speed would get a bit too fast with this one. If it's faster than your global cooldown, is there really any point past that? But it would be hilarious to play around with. Cold Front. Casting 15 Frostbolts or Flurries calls down a frozen orb on your target. Hitting an enemy player counts as double. This used to be comets from what I remember, but 3 frozen orbs is potentially very powerful. More powerful than a comet at any rate, and it's only every 15 casts. This could end up being huge. Freezing Winds. While Frozen Orb is active, you gain Fingers of Frost every 5 seconds. While Frozen Orb is not active, each Frostbolt reduces the cooldown of Frozen Orb by 2.5 seconds. Even more Frozen Orb interactions. I feel like Frost could be very powerful with the right legendary effects. Glacial Fragments. Ice Lance has a 15% chance to explode into shards of ice when it hits a target, dealing frost damage to up to 5 nearby enemies. This chance is increased to 50% if your target is standing in a blizzard. More AoE potential here. Frost might just end up being amazing in Mythic Plus once again. And then the last class for now is the Warrior. Leaper. Heroic Leap gains 2 additional charges because of course this had to make a comeback in one way or another. Misshapen Mirror. Spell Reflection lasts 200% longer and applies to your party. This is a very interesting one, and incredibly powerful in Torghast as the anima power, because being able to reflect huge spells from your entire party can not only save their lives, but it can wreak havoc on your enemies. Can you imagine everyone in your party getting Spell Reflect in a BG? That could be huge. The amount of CC reflection potential or just huge nuke potential is absolutely insane. Signet of Tormented Kings. Activating Bladestorm, Recklessness, or Avatar randomly casts one of the other 2 abilities. This is another fun one and potentially incredibly powerful. You could essentially Bladestorm 3 times in a row or Recklessness 3 times in a row. That's some crazy damage right there. Now most of the specs for warriors aren't finished, so we only have one for arms right now, Battle Lord. Your slam has a 30% chance to reset the cooldown of Mortal Strike. Not too bad, but not too interesting either. We don't have any for Fury, but we do have 2 for Prot. Thunderlord. Each enemy you hit with Thunderclap reduces the remaining cooldown on Demoralizing Shout by 3 seconds. That's another Legion legendary effect, making a comeback. And the Wall. Shield Slam generates an additional 2 rage and reduces the remaining cooldown of Shield Wall by 4 seconds. Yet another Legion legendary effect, but at least they're picking out some of the good ones. The coolest thing about these legendary effects is that you'll get to choose which ones you want to use more or less right away. You'll have to unlock the legendary effect one way or another, but once you have it, you can apply it to a piece of legendary gear that is crafted, so you also get to choose the slot. It doesn't stop there though, you also get to choose the secondary stats of any legendary you make, so you're making it for yourself. It's not based on RNG. You get to choose the effect you want to use, you get to choose the slot your legendary will occupy, and you get to choose the stats. You're building it from the ground up, and that's going to feel so good. This is all based on your effort, your time, your work. No RNG involved almost whatsoever. I can't wait to see what other legendary effects we get to pick from. It looks like every class will have a pretty long list if these early previews are anything to go by. If you're curious as to how you're going to piece this legendary together, from what we know so far, you'll need a crafted piece of gear. So you'll either have to craft that yourself with your appropriate crafting profession, so tailoring for cloth pieces, leatherworking for leather and mail pieces, or blacksmithing for plate pieces. So you'll need that profession yourself if you want to craft it for yourself, or you'll just need to buy it from someone who can craft it. This is how you pick your slot. Then you'll also need to obtain the legendary effect in Torghast somehow. Not too clear on that just yet. You'll also need a legendary crafting reagent to power your legendary. That does come from Torghast cell block runs at the moment, which may or may not be limited in some capacity. And then you can choose stats by using specific gems from jewel crafters. That's the easy part. I'll talk more about how to make a legendary in detail when we actually get proper details on the alpha or beta, and then we can start crafting them and show them off. But that's it for this quick little preview. As more legendary effects become available, I'll be sure to cover those as well. A lot of classes were missing, so there's plenty more to dig through here. We just need to wait for a couple more alpha builds. What do you think of these effects from what you've seen so far? Are there any effects from Legion legendaries, old set bonuses, Azurite powers, or even Legion artifact abilities that you'd like to see return as legendary effects in Shadowlands? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to dig through new alpha builds as they come up with us live, you can find us over at twitch.tv/KalaniTV. We stream every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 12 PM PST. And we also have a huge 12-hour live stream planned for this Saturday, the 20th of June, to celebrate us reaching a whopping 500 subscribers on Twitch. So be sure to join us there for that one. Watching the stream and coming to say hi is one of the best ways you can support the channel right now, and if you ever wanted to be included in the long list of names at the end of every video, a subscription on Twitch is the easiest way to make that happen. You also get a free sub to any Twitch channel if you have Amazon Prime too, so be sure to take advantage of that. A big thank you to all 500 of you who have already subscribed on Twitch and to our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, well, now you know how. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time.